The world of Dungeons and Dragons is filled with all kinds of beings and entities. From the drow, elves who live in the Underdark, to the angels, celestial agents, sent forth to further God's agenda. There are the Dryad, creatures of the forest with ties to the Fae. These are but a glimpse into the extensive world of D&D, and for a sensitive like Jamie, partial truth to the beings and entities she has encountered. In part 2 of our conversation with Jamie, we talk about her scariest experiences, the different abilities of her family, and how she customizes her D&D games to be more truthful to the actual paranormal world we live in. Enjoy. Of course, our podcast being a paranormal podcast, we would ask you some scary, scary experiences. If you again, if you would like to share, do you have any particular scary experiences that I'm not sure if you've experienced that in England or the other countries you've been to, but given that, do you have like really creepy experiences you can share with us?
Well, like I said, the most creepy where I think the most creepy stuff is where I've actually had negative entities that kind of tend to pop out at me.
Okay.
I'm I'm not good with frights.
Yes.
I don't like it when things pop out at me. I absolutely, and some beings tend to do that every once in a while.
Yeah.
There's this old woman entity that used to follow me around, and she was very she knew that I was scared. I never dared ask her anything or kind of investigate what she was, but she would follow me around from time to time, and she had this horrible habit of every time there was something dark around, because um I was living with a person who had lots of negative energy, and it really, really affected what we had around us.
Hmm.
Attract he would attract angry spirits constantly, and kind of attract demons. And so there were several scary stories around that. And one of the things that really bugged me, that anytime there was like this, anytime a demon would show up around him, she would pop up too. And she would kind of give me frights every time I was trying to look for, like, for instance, look for the demon to kind of like figure out where they were or what
Yeah.
they were doing. She would just she would sense that I was sending my mind out, and she
Yes.
would pop up. I was always so scared. Oh, I absolutely hated it. Why do you do this?
Yes.
Why do you keep popping out at me? And I've had a couple of times, because I'm very sensitive to channeling,
Yes.
that negative entities, like I'm calling them demons for now, but that
Yes.
they were,
But it's just the negative energies. Yeah.
yeah, and they would kind of try and take over. And I would become very moody and very negative, and I would have very dark thoughts. Usually, not towards myself, but more on the sense of someone else being very weak and wanting to destroy them in some way or another. So that's not me
Yeah.
at all, as most people know. So and one time, even someone burned sage around me
Hmm.
when I was in that mood, and when it came near me, the sage just burst. It just kind of exploded. There was
It physically burst. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was just this loud bang, and all of a sudden there was this spark flying down on me, and I was absolutely repelled by the smoke. I just couldn't be near it. I was crawling into a ball, and screaming to get it away from me and stuff. And then afterwards, later, when I was in a more positive headspace, when I was kind of rid of that entity, I'd never had that problem again. And of course, what I said about the one with the dream earlier, with the,
Yes. Without surrounding you.
yeah, and kind of hanging in my face and
Yeah.
stuff, that kind of stuff, that's the stuff that really got to me. But there's something strange that happens, and it's part something I wanted to ask you as well,
Yes.
based on
Go ahead.
how you experience this. um because every time I get scared, or if there's a negative entity around me and I get scared, stuff will happen. Like I've had drawers open and cupboard doors just flying open and shut and stuff, or weird banging starting around me, or like smoke going up and then all of a sudden going down again.
The smoke manifesting in front of you. Is it like what color?
No, like, for instance, if there was incense burning,
Okay.
the smoke would go up like normal, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, uh, if I got scared, the smoke would start flowing down. It would
Okay.
kind of like curve and go down
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and then spread across the floor. So that was really weird. But the thing that I was curious about, because my mum and my dad and my sister all have other paranormal experiences as well. And my dad had really um, prophetic dreams. I've had them too. And my sister is really good at guessing things. Like she we were playing a game and
Intuition.
yes, and she kind of guessed the order of cards that were in my hand, the exact cards,
Yes.
and also the exact order that they were in.
Yes.
So I got really upset with her because we were playing the game. She was like, "Oh, you have this, this,
Cheating.
this,
Yeah.
this, this."
She felt she was
That's what I
cheating.
said. I said you're cheating, and she got really upset. Poor thing. And but my mum actually has had things. I've actually seen her bend a spoon because she was angry. She was just holding a spoon, and all of a sudden you saw the spoon bend because she was really angry. And she was waving the spoon around, and all of a sudden you just saw the spoon curve.
Yeah.
And we all stopped fighting, and we all just when we're looking at the spoon like.
Yeah.
She said, "Am I the only one seeing this?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought I was the only one seeing." And to this day, that spoon is bent.
All right. Have you heard of Uri Geller?
Yes.
Yeah, if you can, yeah. So that's him also. He has that ability to. So again, for people who haven't heard of him, it seems like a parlor trick, but again, it shows you the power of the
Yes.
mind
So
in intention.
and she's had she was angry at one point and she was holding a cup and the cup literally just exploded and she was only holding the handle
Yeah.
afterwards. It always stops the fighting though.
Yes.
Whenever she got upset, stuff like that would happen. And so given that I have drawers opening whenever I'm scared or upset. I was wondering, how do you feel? Do you think it's something that we inherit? Do you think it's something that genetically passed on?
Actually, from the people we've talked to, it's always they would share their sensitivity, and then we would find out their mother had it. Just yesterday, we were talking to this girl. She has a different experience, but she was telling us her mom was devoutly Christian, and for her, whenever something strange would happen, everything would go silent, and then she would have this heavy feeling, and then she knows there's something. It's either there's a creature or a spirit. That's how she experienced it, and then we found out from her stories that her mother had it. Again, from the evidence that we've from the people we've talked to, it's something passed down. And what I'm trying to do is for the people in the Philippines is I'm trying to find out what area of the Philippines these people come from, what region, and I found out that mostly it's in the southern region near that spiritual that hidden city. So my theory is their offspring, they're crossbreed. That's my
Oh,
theory. That's my theory.
that's a really interesting theory. Because I wonder what it would be like in the Netherlands then, if there's some origin as well. Because, like I said, like my mum's Dutch and my dad's English, and they both had experiences, and so have I, that are I've had experiences similar to what they've had. Because, for instance, my dad predicted the death of a pope.
Mm-hmm.
He woke up because my father's side of the family is Catholic as well. So they woke up and my dad was crying and he said uh, that my grandfather woke up to him. He said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "The Pope's died." And then a few hours later, they turned on the TV in the morning and they heard that the Pope had died. and like, and my dad's had out of body experiences and stuff as well. I've also had a dream. I've actually I've probably seen the murder of a famous murder here in the Netherlands. I've seen it in my dream
Mm.
before it happened, the
Before it
day before
happened.
it happened.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a dream that I was dropping a kid off at school, and I was walking to my car, and someone arrived on a scooter, and he shot me 5 times, and I saw his face and everything. And then I woke up thinking this has some connection to my sister. And then later, my sister was home late, so I was really worried about her. And then she told me that the man that had sold her music instrument, she was having music lessons, and the man that had sold her music instrument, and he was friends with her teacher, that he had been dropping his kid off at school, and that he had been shot a couple of times in the chest walking back to his car. And the media didn't say anything about the killer, only that they were on a scooter and that they had shot 3 to 6 times, and that he was of a certain heritage, and that matched my description of what I saw in the dream
Yeah.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
including like the gates of the school, because
Yeah.
they showed aerial pictures of where it had happened, and even the gates of the school, everything was identical. I've seen this killer's face possibly.
Yes.
I remember seeing it very clearly. I remember seeing a face, but they still haven't caught whoever's done it. So that's an that's an interesting thing to kind of share with my parents as well, because they also have had these experiences.
The clarity of the ability is different for, again, for people. Probably you inherited your clarity from your dad, who knew that the Pope would pass away. Oh yeah, actually your Reddit post mentioned that boy. Remember that you dreamt of this your crush when you were younger.
Oh yes,
Would you want to tell that story?
yes. There was this boy in my class when I think I was maybe 6 or 7 or something, and I've always had kind of a thing for the silent type, uh, ever since I was young. And this guy, this little boy, he wouldn't say much, and he would always be in class with me, and he would kind of be. He'd look around. He'd never stick up his hand to answer questions or anything, but he was kind of sitting at one of the desks. And I had this huge crush on him, and I knew his name was Kevin. And so yes, I was very fond of this boy. And then all of a sudden I had a dream one night that he had been run over by a train, that he'd fallen onto the tracks and he'd been hit by a train, and that doctors were discussing him, the two doctors, and they said that there was a problem with his heart and his brain, and that that had been like the problem, and they were very dramatic about it in a way. It's So I woke up crying, and I wanted to tell this boy, like, I dreamt about you, and I always kind of we I think we spoke a couple of times, because obviously I knew like his name was Kevin and stuff like that, and but he didn't show up to school that day, and then he didn't show up the day after, and eventually after, like, I think a week, I kind of asked my teacher, do you know if Kevin's coming back? Because I wanted to tell him something. Has he moved or something, or is he sick? And they didn't know who I was talking to. I was like, well, the blonde boy that sits over there, and and the teacher had no idea. And I asked my classmates as well, like, have you seen Kevin around? And they were all like, well, no, we don't know who that is. We don't have anyone that looks like that or acts like that in our class. And I was devastated to find out that he'd never been in our class, but I'd spoken to him a couple of times, and it's also not like the typical imaginary friend or something where they play with you constantly or something. It was very much a question of he was just in class and I happened to see him from a distance and I really liked him and stuff. And I've never heard anything about him after that again. So I still don't really know what happened there. To this day, there's still a part of me that just kind of thinks of him every now and again, like that little boy in my class that just disappeared into thin air and nobody knew about him.
Is it possible that he was probably a ghost to begin with?
I I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So you've had a crush on a ghost.
Yes. And it was my first crush. So I was absolutely devastated.
Yes. that's that's really special. For different people, they, I mean, for you as a young child, you saw that kid as really there. He was solid, right? He was sitting down in that area. For some people, again, we've talked to a few people who have the abilities, and they have different. Again, we have someone scheduled, I think, tomorrow, that she described her ability as just feeling, smelling, and sensing them, but she could not see. So again, it appears that people with abilities, they have different levels of clarity with regards to, or different senses are
Yeah.
immersed. Yeah. So for you, again, it's a discovery for me that you don't. It doesn't come to you as a smell. The entities, the being in the tree, because here usually Sam would attest to it, and they smell. When they smell something, they know there's an entity there. I will ask later for areas in the UK, but in Amsterdam, what areas have the most activity in terms of spirits? Have you visited the castles in Utrecht?
Because Hara have been because they hold a fantasy festival every year and I
Mm,
go with friends and so I have been there a couple of times. Um, I usually find that it's not the places where you would necessarily expect it. In England, though, I have been to several castles, and yes, there's
what
tons
do
of
you see?
spirits.
What do you see? Are they in armor?
We have this castle ruin in the south of the Netherlands, like the absolute tip of the south. Uh, you have this place called Valkenburg, and there's a castle in the middle of there's, the city's kind of built around it.
Mm-hmm.
This ruin, and so we went there, and I saw an entity looking out over the fields from one of these small windows that they would
Yes.
have to,
Yes.
and behind the wall there would be small slits that guards could look through, and that he was just when I came close to him, I kind of saw what he was seeing, and there was no real big village there, no real town there yet.
Yeah.
It was just kind of flat, and so I've seen some, and I tend to leave him alone in
Yeah.
because they've got their finger, and usually those are the kinds that are on a loop.
Yes. The older ones.
Yes, is those are the ones that are kind of on a loop. So I find it really interesting to kind of see, but that's one of the few in the Netherlands. I usually come across them in parks or bridges. Like I remember one time I was walking across a bridge near where I live, and I saw someone walking down the stairs on the other side of the bridge
Mm-hmm.
where I was heading towards. And but I knew that I could kind of sense that that wasn't a real person, that they weren't really there. And then I had to go down that direction, and there's huge open field, so you can't really go anywhere. There's not really a place to hide.
Yeah.
If you were to walk down that stairs, you're in view
Yeah.
for a long time, and there was absolutely no
No
one there. And
wonder.
but I could actually already tell when they were kind of walking down that they didn't look right. That they didn't look completely real or something. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
And I used to freak my sister out because there was one in her room, spirit, and she hated it. She was so scared every time.
What
I
what kind
felt
of
so bad.
spirit was it?
So there was this weird thing in our house that there was this wall of energy that I would walk up against, and it horrible. Hated it. Every time I would
Was that like a portal?
I'm not sure. Sometimes maybe it's like a ley line or something.
Okay, okay.
But there was this spot in our house where if I would walk through, it would be like someone hit my third eye,
Yeah,
like someone hit me right here
yeah.
on the forehead, and so it was kind of uh, and right after I walked through that, always that would be right near my sister's room, and I would look in, and I would see her sitting there with wet hair, with her back towards me. And like me, she has black hair. So, but there's nothing black in her room. So it wasn't like, oh, it's the back of a chair or something. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that was the only black thing in her room would be her hair, because her whole room was yellow.
Okay.
I would always see her sitting there with wet hair, and she wouldn't turn around, and I would just walk by, maybe say something like hi, or hope you had a nice shower or something.
Hmm.
And then I would walk down, and she would be sitting in the living room. And so I didn't tell her for a while. And after a while, she kind of asked me, like, "Do you see anything in this house?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I see someone in your room." Oh, she was not happy. She had such trouble sleeping after that. I felt so bad.
Among your family, you're the only one who sees spirits? Because your mom has different abilities and your dad has premonition, but
My dad has had some experiences when he was younger. But he's kind of grown out of them because he was very scared of them. He was so well, he was raised to kind of be scared of that kind of stuff.
I think the fact that you developed it and I mean, you cultivated it, that's a reason why I mean, you still have it because some people, again, some people we've talked to who refuse to, I mean, didn't agree to talk to us is because they say that the more you talk about it, the more you attract it. That's what they say. But
Yeah.
for us, it's I don't want to attract anything, but we want to understand. We want to understand what this invisible world is. This thing we cannot see.
Well, I don't know what it's like for other people. Like, for instance, I don't know if Sam has experienced something similar, but I find that it depends on your emotions. That if you're very scared of something, if I get scared, I'll attract them way more.
Then when you're positive,
Yeah.
when you got angry, these things would appear, right?
Yes, and same with like when I was scared, like when I said earlier, like things will start to move, because it's almost like you well, based on what I see with my synesthesia, I see energy coming off people constantly. This constant stream of energy that just comes out of people, and it's different based on your mood, how much comes out, at what frequency almost it comes out, because it moves, it kind of vibrates when it comes out of people. And so that depends on how people experience what comes off someone. This feeling that you get, like, oh, being someone can be sitting quietly, but you can feel like, oh, they're upset, or oh, they're actually angry. That's because this vibration comes off them that I can see. So
See and feel, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I've noticed that when I get upset, that more energy will come off me, and the same goes for other people. That if you get negative emotions, that it will kind of spread out of you. That emotion, it will kind of leak out at all sides, and it has a much bigger range of reaching people than if you're happy.
So probably these entities see it and are attracted to that. I mean, negative entities. I would assume that they're attracted to this whatever energy you're releasing if you're angry or scared.
Yes, it's kind of like you're leaking
Yeah.
energy. I've also heard that physically blocking your third eye, like putting something in front of it, also helps. There's people that deliberately do this with their crown chakra. If their crown chakra is open, they will deliberately um, what they call veil it. So they'll put something on top of it to kind of help contain it, because otherwise they find that it's too much for them to have that open. And so the same goes for the third eye. That if you can find something to kind of block it, that it helps. But the light is definitely a very positive thing that happens. That's used a lot.
Okay.
So I did also learn that as well. Even the belief that you are protected really helps in how protected you are. So that's an interesting story as well, because um, I know several people that are very sensitive, but because they believe that they are protected, that they are safe, uh, nothing bad ever happens to them.
Yeah.
Even though I've seen someone who had this was the mum of that guy that I was talking about earlier,
Yeah.
who she, like, everyone when they went to that attic, they would get
Yeah.
very uncomfortable because there was this nasty spirit there, but she would just go there and like be whistling while she was doing the laundry, and she would just be all happy. And I actually went up and I actually saw that the spirit was trying to attack her or trying to latch onto her, but she believed that she was protected and that she was safe, and so nothing happened to her. She was the only one who didn't experience anything in the attic, even though she was probably the most sensitive, because I think that that's where that family was sensitive too. And she would tell stories about her mother uh, having very powerful experiences, but she never experienced anything because she was always just very. She always believed that she was safe, that nothing would harm her. And I could actually see that this negative entity was trying to latch onto her, trying to hurt her, and she was just well, almost like she was shielded by her own positivity. So that's very interesting. If you truly believe that you are safe and that you are strong enough, or that there's something protecting you, then
Yeah. You
they
are.
can't do nearly as much. Yeah.
It's very interesting because that's the same story again from The Exorcist. He said, of course, after exorcising the entity, he didn't say it was a demon or whatever, but he after exorcising that entity from that girl, of course, he couldn't protect her 24/7. For some reason, that girl attracted evil entity. So he advised the girl that whenever you feel that entity coming to attack you again, just be positive. So this girl knew that entity was coming because she would get goosebumps. Her cat would react, so she know it's coming. So what the exorcist told her was, be happy. Same as your story that she would be whistling and she would be happy. So the girl would do was she'd play music, she would dance, she would sing, and it eventually the exorcist said that that negative spirit just gave up because every time it tried to latch onto you, you were happy and you were positive, and it didn't so it's a very interesting side because again you're saying the same thing with the
The
mom.
dancing as well. I advise my friends if something is wrong with if they are having a bad mood and they're very they have this heavy presence around them, and I sense something bad in the room. Because some of my friends are also very spiritual, so sometimes, like for instance, that's one of the people I talk to my guides with. What I would say is, you know what, just stand up with me, and we're just going to put on a nice song, and we're just going to dance, and it would stop. It would drive away all the negativity. So that's really beautiful. But it's kind of weird to have this to do this as I've because several people have told me like you should do this as a job, and it's on the one hand it's tempting, on the other hand I don't think it's really for me.
Yes.
I think it would be too much of the same thing. So I have
Correct.
lots of respect for people who can do it and help other people with it. And I do know all the tricks and I can help. And I've definitely heard lots of stories. I've seen lots of things, but to actually be able to do that 24/7, to
Yes.
just do that, that would be, I think, too much for me. So that's why I eventually stopped going down that path, because that was a path that I was on, that I would also do that kind of work as that exorcist as you were talking about. But eventually I was constantly not myself, because I was also constantly channeling my spirits,
Yes.
my spirit guides. I was constantly channeling the energy of the entities that wanted to be there to kind of know what they wanted, and just I felt very pushed away. My own
Personality. Yeah.
soul felt very
Yeah.
pushed away to the background. So eventually, I stopped doing that. That's immense respect for those who can actually.
Yes. Actually, for here in the Philippines, the supposed to be witch doctors. So there are like two sides to the story in the Philippines. So there are witch doctors, and they call them well, general term they're witches. So curses. So curses do happen also here. We've heard stories, and the it's like witchcraft technically. So the witch doctors are the good ones, and the witches are the bad ones. So they constantly fight also. They constantly, if someone is cursed, they will go to a witch doctor, and the witch doctor will treat them and find out who cast the curse. The witch doctors here, they do not charge anything. They will just, if you ask them how much do I pay you, and they just say whatever you want. They do not. So it's not a viable job actually here, because they feel, maybe it's a Catholic thing, that they feel that it's a gift and I'm just helping people. If they give back to me, then good. If they don't, it's harder for
It's I think that's a good thing because sometimes what you see here is that people will kind of, if once they start asking money, like we have a lot of mediums here, and a lot of those mediums are just seen as scammers because, well, some obviously are, but obviously I know that that's not the only reason that people become mediums. But the second you start asking money for it, it corrupts your intentions. I feel, and that's I think that that's really the problem that these mediums then face. It corrupts them so they either lose their ability, or it becomes warped or distorted or something. Because yeah, I mean personally I'm a Buddhist,
hmm
and based on that they also say like, well, it's a gift.
yeah.
Ironically enough, I've had more problems with Christianity than I have had with certain other religions, because I've had some people have been really nice to me and have said, "Oh, this is a gift from God. You know,
Yeah.
this is given to you for a reason,
Yeah.
and this is a gift from God for you to help other people." And I find that such a lovely notion. But I've also had people tell me, this is the devil.
Yes, devil's
This
work. Yeah.
this is the devil's work, and he's tricking you, and you have been tempted by witchcraft and
Yeah.
evil, and that's why you have this gift, and you're going straight to hell for it. So that to me was kind of painful. So I've had more trouble with Christianity than with other religions. I've not had this discussion with many other religious types. I mostly The Netherlands are pretty Christian as well, especially parts where I'm in are pretty Christian. Um, but that's kind of this difference that it was very difficult for me to accept it as a kid, because I thought it was evil, because I've been told it was evil.
Yes.
And now later I kind of realized that
It's not.
it's
It's not. Yes.
yeah, you can do amazing work with it if you are strong enough and you are so inclined.
Yes. Most of the people we talk to here, because most of the guests we have are Filipinos. Again, they choose not to divulge their identity because they will be judged by the religious zealots here who feel that it's a gift from the devil. That's why, again, I will cut back to Sam that he doesn't tell most of his relatives about it, because he doesn't get anyone to talk to about it, because he cannot talk to them about it. That's why, again, this is a good thing for us to talk about, so that people will understand that it's normal. It's there, but not a lot of people have it, but it's normal. I mean, it doesn't mean you're strange or you're different. It's just that it's a different ability to have.
Yes, it's a different part of life, and I think it's sad that we can't openly discuss this stuff with each other. You know, you have to be very lucky to find someone else that has similar abilities and is open to it. That's like for instance, why I like going to those fantasy festivals, because you meet more open-minded people, and it's also why I love in my work. I believe we briefly discussed this on Reddit as well, that I played lots of Dungeons and Dragons,
Yes, yes,
the game, which is also considered to be satanic by
yes,
some people.
yes,
But I actually use it to help people with trauma and problems, as kind of we run a charity where we do that. So yeah, it's and I always put stuff in from my own experiences. Like they have in D&D, they have
yeah,
something called the Feywild, where
yes,
you have
yes,
all these
yes,
fairies and things. So I will most definitely put that in my campaigns, or from the elemental planes they have
yes,
there as well. So I always put that kind of stuff in, and I absolutely avoid putting in undeads and demons, because it just feels like it doesn't
tiefling. How
feel.
about a tiefling? Yeah. Would you consider the tiefling a demon?
Tieflings I don't mind putting in, because
Okay.
but it's just more the actual um like hell places or necromancy, stuff like that. That's for me somehow feels a bit too real, a bit too personal, versus the lighter stuff, the lighter side of it, where where I see these elemental creatures and stuff, and I absolutely love my time with it with them, because they are have always been very inviting to me in a way. If that's a good thing or not, I don't know, but they have always been very friendly to me, and kind of more interested than hostile or anything. So I tend to put encounters with magical creatures in my games as well.
Yes. So, do you DM or do you play a character?
Mostly I mostly DM, because yeah, like I said,
5e? Do you stick with 5e or are you going with the older ones?
I've done several. I've done AD&D. I've even done one session of OD&D,
What's OD&D?
or original D&D.
Oh,
That's the
original
oldest
D&D.
version.
Okay.
And then you have original D&D, then you have advanced D&D, then you have advanced D&D 2, which
2,
I think
yes.
is just considered second edition.
Yeah.
And then you have third edition, 3.5, Pathfinder second edition, fourth edition.
Yeah. So you did Pathfinder also.
Yeah, I've done Pathfinder, I've
Okay.
done AD&D, and I've done OD&D, and mostly do fifth edition.
Okay. How do you like the fifth now?
It's easiest to kind of get into, especially for new players, which is mostly what I work with, because I work with kids, and we kind of use it as a way for them to open up about um, their feelings. They give them we give them a safe space to kind of practice with stuff like social anxiety. Like if they're scared to talk to people, this gives them a safe space with friends that they get to know over time, uh, to kind of get that connection, to kind of get that uh, part of exercise. But that's the closest I come to using my paranormal experiences in
Yes.
my work, because I incorporate it in the stories that I tell.
And I'm assuming when you play with these children, you could, again, with your empathy, you kind of know what they're feeling and you can try to adjust to what they're feeling.
Definitely, definitely. It is challenging, because you can sometimes see things that aren't necessarily intended for the game. Like if someone has a really bad day, or some really sad emotions, or some trauma that they're hiding, it can almost be distracting for me, because I can see that something's wrong and you don't know what's wrong. So it's very tempting for the mind to start to guess, like, oh,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you? Are you
Yeah.
upset with my game?
Yeah.
Do you
Okay.
not
Okay.
like it?
Yes.
Well, but at the same time, it's probably something from their own home lives, or something like that. You don't really know, especially with these kids that we work with. But it's very nice to do, and very rewarding. So it's kind of the closest thing I get to using my abilities for good in real life, because like I said, I tried more spiritual work, and while it's very rewarding, it's also very much.
Yes. So how many dice do you have?
Too many,
Too many.
too many. I have I have a huge pouch that was made by a friend, and I think I have like 10 sets of dice. So that's like 70 dice that are just for me. And then I have dice specifically for my players that don't have dice of their own. They can borrow dice. Yeah, so we have a bag specifically filled with dice for people that don't have them on their own. And I think I have like 7 sets for that as well. And then I have 10 sets for myself. So that's there's 7 dice per set. So that's 7 times 17. That's
Yes.
roughly how many dice I have.
You have,
And then
yes.
my boyfriend, who is also the one that helps me with this project, and is actually the one that has the most experience when it comes to. He's actually trained to be a social worker, so he can help on the different levels. So we kind of work together with that. And he also has his own set of dice. So we have a lot of them lying around in our house. If we're ever attacked, we can use D4s as caltrops.
Okay. So being a social worker, you can customize your campaigns to. I mean, you can customize the touch points of the campaign to at least treat and if since you know the problems of these kids, you can adjust them accordingly. That's nice.
Yes, that's what we try and do. And so I read the energy and tell them paranormal stories to kind of like set the mood
Yeah.
based on my own experience, but they don't have to know that.
Yes.
And then my boyfriend is the one that kind of looks at it from a social worker point because he's been educated in that, and he kind of like helps them um on a different level than I do. So we kind of combined our forces to give D&D and kind of help people as much as we can. So that's
Do you play with also play with figure minis?
yes, yes. Well, I have a map that I can wipe out really easily.
Mm, yes.
I kind of draw their position on the map because I don't have a lot of minis. I've used coins, pebbles, candy. The
What are the
candy's really
pebbles?
fun because then the kids get to eat it when they defeat an enemy. Yeah, so if you use a cookie as an enemy and then you say if you defeat it, you can have the cookie.
Yeah.
Makes them very motivated.
Moving away from
Yeah, yeah.
paranormal, but back to D&D. What campaigns would you? I mean, what do you do? Do you do your own campaigns or do you retrofit it from the existing
I
books?
usually do my own campaigns purely because some of the lore that's written in the actual campaign books is usually it it has its own story to tell. It has its own belief of how certain events went. For instance, in the books, like that for me don't feel real because I like when I was with that certain group that I told you about, they had conversations with people that would channel uh, demons or dark entities deliberately so that they could kind of ask for information. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. Of course, I don't know how accurate that is because, obviously, so there were people that were channeling angels or what they said were angels or light beings. And then one person would channel something dark and they would kind of like surround him with light entities and they would kind of ask him questions so that was to me I don't know how accurate that was and the information but the things that you hear the things that you get from that are so different than what they describe in the lore books but I found it really interesting the way it was described by these during these interviews, let's call them that. And so I if I want to incorporate something as dark as demons or devils, I will go with a story that's more like what I heard from this entity than what's in the books. Well, when in the books, it's very this is what happened and this
Yeah.
is like the history of it. So I actually get into arguments with a friend of mine all the time because he reads the books very faithfully,
Yes.
and he'll say, "Well, that's not how it goes. It says that." It says that this and this demon made this and this deal, and then
Yes.
that's how this happened. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to. I'm
Yeah.
not going to put
You
that in
don't know the
there.
real
Because
story. So if you're comfortable sharing that, can you share part of what the lore? I mean, the actual lore is. I mean, from. I mean, yeah, they're not accurate, but I'm really interested in. Maybe I can use that in my stories, in my games.
It's a little difficult to describe, mostly because it's there was a lot of other lore as well surrounding the angels or the light creatures that they used. They all had their own stories of events, and sometimes they would conflict and stuff like that. So it's really, like, for instance, there was this uh, very famous channeler on YouTube, and we were watching that, and one of the other beings that was there would say, "He's exaggerating."
Really,
Like he's making it, because they said that he was channeling a very powerful ancient angel, and the other guys were listening, and they said, "Oh, we know that angel, and he tends to exaggerate,"
really.
and stuff like that. So there's this whole lore. It's kind of complicated to get into now, but maybe I can write some of it down and send you a link.
So yes, if you can send a link for that.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff, but there's so many stories to tell. I mean, I could probably sit here all day, tell you different stories and stuff
We
that I
can
have
sit here
experienced.
forever. We can.
Probably because I also love hearing your stories as well. So I think we would be here way too long if we tried to fit everything in.
Yes. Before we end, because I've taken up at least 3 hours. We're going 3 hours already. I'm sorry about that. But do you have like questions for us? I mean, maybe you've heard of things in the Philippines, or if there are things that you want to know about that, maybe we could. Aside from that question about heritage, do you have like any question about?
Well, I'm definitely interested in that uh, in that Sun City that you told me about. I'm very interested about where they say that is, or that kind of stuff, because like I said, I've also been kind of studying that stuff for myself from places around the world as well, specifically the part where this ancient civilization that's very tall and very magical, mystical, that they kind of have their own place. So I'm really curious about that. I'd love to learn more about it.
I have a deeper research on that. Have you heard of this? I'm not sure if it's called the religion, theosophy.
uh
There's this group theosophy by Madame Blavatsky.
no, I haven't.
No, okay. So you might want to look into that. So they have this belief, this group, the Theosophical Society of. This was built. This was started 1800, late 1800s, I think, 1890s. They believe that Earth, our where we are now, we are in the fifth age. I think we're in the fifth age, and in the fourth age, that was Atlantis. Again, that's their belief. That's Atlantis. So
Yeah.
so that was technically an advanced civilization.
Yes.
Before that was the third age, when whatever happened, it was either the deluge or I don't know what happened. That again, I'm building the theory on that probably when whatever happened, the great catastrophe happened, parts of these survivors of the advanced civilizations went to different
Yes.
nations, diba? And eventually they crossbred. That's my theory
Yes.
is that's how people with abilities have the ability because it's passed through your genes. So it of course it whittles down, so you get less abilities the farther you are from your original bloodline. So that's my theory. If you want to read up on that, the Theosophical Society, but look for Madame Blavatsky. That's their theory. That's
Okay.
the belief. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And well, obviously, then a different part is true that neither of my parents see as much as me, but they both have something. But because they came together, maybe that's why I have so many.
Yes. More.
So it's more like the bloodlines came together again and
Yeah.
became more power. I don't know. It's
Yes.
like my sister obviously also has gifts. My parents, and so it's very weird to have that kind of realization that it's very family oriented, very family bound.
Your sister, does she have the same abilities as you or different?
Different. She has more what they call knowing.
Intuition. Yeah, intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, so she is very sensitive to emotions and stuff as well. But for her, it's not visual, and also she's kind of scared of the paranormal. But she does have that annoying habit to know exactly what cards you have in your hand, or she'll just know stuff sometimes out of nothing. She'll just be able to sense things. She practiced with it a little bit uh, when I was in my 20s. She kind of practiced with it a little bit. It's very interesting, but because my whole family eventually, because I came out and told more about myself and that I could see these things and stuff, especially the synesthesia part with the energies that I
Yes.
see coming from people. My mom actually, for instance, started playing games with that as well, and she developed her powers more.
Really? Wow.
So because she was playing games, like she would when I was a kid, she if she got mad, she would
Yeah.
have this force emanate from her that almost felt like it was pushing me. And because she also had like the spoons bending,
Yeah.
and I said, well, obviously you're very strong at sending your energy in a very physical way.
Yes.
So she started practicing focusing on one point and kind of pushing her energy towards
To
that
that
point.
point.
And if it did go wrong at some point, like other people would hear this, they would probably shake their heads
Yeah.
a lot. But she didn't really know the significance of the third eye yet.
Yes.
So she focused on it from my dad and sent a blast at him at the third eye. And he had a headache for, I think, like 3 days.
Were they fighting, or she just wanted to
No,
do
no,
that?
she just really wanted to see if she could,
Yeah.
because he was like, "Oh, I don't think it's real, and I think I can. I think I could stop you if you really tried." So she
Yeah.
kind of took that as a challenge, and she was like, "Okay, well, let's sit in front of each other, and I'll try and push
Yeah.
on your third eye because that's obviously where you can sense it the most."
Yes.
So she wanted to make sure that he could sense if she pushed on
Can
him
push
with
it.
her
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
So, but that's she pushed so hard that he got a headache for 3 days, and I was like, "Oh, you probably shouldn't have done that, mom.
Yeah.
You I don't think that's very healthy to push at someone's third eye with your mental energy like that."
What do you see when when she gets angry? Does she get a different what color or what energy do you see when she gets angry?
um, Basically, the energy gets very dense,
Mm.
and it'll whip around really fast, and it'll kind of whip around really fast, and she'll just kind of almost like a hand slapping at someone.
Okay.
Because I see, for me, the way I see it is an aura with tentacles kind of coming from it, and the tentacles
Oh.
interact with each other. And so they almost act like hands sometimes. Like if you like someone, it'll be like they're holding hands or shaking hands or hugging each other. But if she's angry, it's like her like energy
Slapping
will
out.
kind of like slap at you, like
Yeah.
stay away from me. And so that's and like I said, she could really push out a lot of energy at the same time. So it would almost be for me like walking into a wall. If I came too close, she would kind of like push her energy out
Yeah.
if she was upset. So I would be, whoa,
Yeah.
ow. That's she would, it would feel like I was being hit in the head with something.
Yes. Actually, to close this again, thank you for your time. I just have one last question, if that's
Sure.
okay. Okay.
Or
I have lots more, but again, to respect your time, I will have one more.
we
One last.
we should otherwise we should get together again sometime because I
Yes.
find your stories really interesting as
Yes,
well.
please. Actually, I wish the others, our other guests could come because they have different abilities. One of my big questions is, the Exorcist actually said for some reason this year, you mentioned this also. The frequencies are because the way he explained it, ghosts are on a different frequency, elementals are on a different frequency, and for some reason this year the frequency, the that it has something to do with the Earth. I'm not sure if it's the rotation or the movement. From the experts, from the sensitive people, ability people he's been talking to, the frequencies this year are mixing. That's why we've have uh, we've technically we've checked this with other people we've talked to. This guy who didn't have abilities, but his office was very haunted. For some reason, the start of this year, ghosts were popping out in their office. And again, I'm not sure if you've noticed it, particularly for this year, 2021, that the frequencies are meshing. That's why people are seeing more spirits, people are seeing more elementals. Have you had the same experience?
I have. It's it's interesting because at the moment, obviously, I'm trying not to focus on it too much
Yes,
because
yes.
with I'm currently working a very different job than I am usually, and I have noticed that other people are coming to me saying that they notice stuff, and for me, I don't see that much change because I always see stuff, you know. So
Yeah.
it it's for me not weird to see certain things, but I am hearing more and more people coming forward saying that they experience weird stuff. So I find that very interesting as well. Like people are becoming more sensitive almost. But actually, before I think this was 2 years ago, I was really looking into both um, Earth's magnetic field
Mm-hmm.
and the impact that solar energy has on it. And there's natural peaks in how much energy comes from the sun and how the magnetic field reacts to that, and based on how strong the magnetic field of Earth is at that time. That's constantly shifting. And what I noticed is that I would get eventually, because I started focusing on it, I got really overly sensitive to the sun radiation interference because it changes the frequencies around you. So what happened every time there was a sunburst, it affects Earth. But every time that would happen, or at any time there was a small shift in the magnetic field of the Earth, which you can see if you look at certain weather sites, will have charts of how the Earth's magnetic field is doing. And every time there was a difference in there, I would immediately sense it, and it would be very weird because everything seems to kind of blur together. The spiritual world and the normal world will kind of overlap in a way that I was unfamiliar with at the time. So I think maybe that could be the reason that it could be increasing, because they are saying that magnetic field is getting more and more unstable as the years go by, because they think of like I think a polar flip. They think that that's coming. So and that they can see that something is changing in Earth's magnetic field. So if I were to guess, I would say that is definitely the reason, because when I looked into it, I definitely noticed that anytime there's a shift there, that these different dimensions with different frequencies, they get very close together. So if I had to guess, I would say it has something to do with that, even though I have not looked into it recently.
Yes. But you have been hearing a lot of people without abilities tell you that they're seeing things or experiencing.
Yes, hearing their spirit guides or noticing weird synchronicities, as they call
Yes.
it,
Yes.
manifesting a lot easier if they wanted if they want something, like, oh, I wanted a job, and like a few days later the phone rang to offer me a job and I hadn't even looked. Or people seeing ones everywhere, all the numerological.
Master numbers.
Yes,
Actually, oh yeah, one of our interviews recently also, she was telling us her spirit guides, she cannot hear them, but they manifest to her through master numbers and through uh, feathers. She sees feathers
oh yes, I hit that one too, yeah.
whenever she would a good thing or bad thing would happen. It's like her spirit guides telling her because she cannot communicate with them directly. So they manifest through numbers and feathers. Again, that's for another episode. When we get to call you again. When you're
Definitely,
yeah.
if you're ever interested, I'd love to hear more stories and I'd love to share more. So if you're ever interested, let me know.
Yes, of course, of course. We'll try to bring in another person from the your side of the world, from Denmark, so that the the time difference would be that much. She's definitely someone you might want to talk to. I actually saw her on Reddit, and the reason I got in touch with her because she was very active on Reddit, giving people advice on how to protect themselves from maybe entities or ano, and the advice sounded so similar to what we heard from The Exorcist. That's why I I knew, or she knows her stuff, similar to you and your son. And Sam and the others, when we were in a call with her, they would say that for some reason she kind of like had a different light, different. She was glowing. So there,
That is super interesting.
yeah.
I'd love to meet. I've actually met a few Lightbringers as well
Oh, really?
in
Okay.
the past. Yes, because it's super interesting because there's all these different theories around it. Like there's several people that are convinced that I'm a Lightbringer, but I just don't know enough about it, to be honest, to say if that's true. Because obviously, yes, I have a lot of weird abilities and I can help. But like I said, I also find it incredibly difficult to, because I lose my sense of identity, which they say that if you do it right, you wouldn't have that. So obviously, I'm not doing something right in that. That's why I decided not to continue. But I find it very fascinating subject, Lightbringers, because they actually actively help, and they know the same things I know, but they know, but they're able to use it better.
Maybe we could, yeah, maybe we could ask her for the next one. You could we could have you also, so that at least you could connect, because we asked her if she has a community there in Denmark, and she said no, because again, probably because of the beliefs of the culture.
So I'm going to head out because
Okay.
I have some things to
Thank
take care
you.
of. But
Thank-
it's so difficult because I honestly I could keep talking. This is
we could keep listening also, but thank you for giving us your time and sharing your stories. I hope we get to reconnect again.
yeah, it was an absolute pleasure, and I know my boyfriend is really interested to hear what comes out of this interview as well. So if you have a link or
Okay.
anything.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you to Jamie for spending a few hours with us comparing notes about elementals and the understanding of the invisible world we all traverse and coexist with. After our conversation, I realized she did say that she did not have any bad experiences with elementals. And this kind of made me realize that maybe, just maybe, if we learn to be aware of our impact on the environment and learn to take care of the environment, maybe these entities, which we do not see, will react to us the same way. Our recklessness and our negative energy spill over to their dimension, and so we should treat them with respect as well. This is not our last conversation with Jamie. Since we are a fan of crossovers, we actually invited Maria again, the light worker, and Jamie to connect. Watch out for that one in one of our future episodes. To say it was mind blowing might be an exaggeration, yes, but we discover a new entity or a new spirit, which is very timely given that the Loki TV series just ended. A cliffhanger on that entity for now, but feel free to email us at paranormalsph@gmail.com if you have any stories that you want to share. If you're in a different country and you want to share what you've experienced there, please do. Let us know. We're forever trying to bridge the experiences across the seas to see the difference and the similarities and all the things we've experienced. Let's try to find out more about synesthesia. The Paranormal Podcast is engineered and produced by F90 Productions. When you can, please rate and review our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, or whichever platform you prefer. Thank you for listening, and stay safe.